July 31st, 2005, a single sniper round erased one of Chicago's most feared black disciples. General's Walter Silk Bennett. But this wasn't just another body dropped in the war-torn streets. This was King Von's father, the ghost architect of a legend, long before Von ever touched a mic. When that distant trigger ended Silk's life at only 30, it didn't just close a chapter, it detonated a chain reaction. An 11-year-old boy named Devin Bennett stood over a coffin and watched his idol disappear into the earth. In that burial ground, King Von was born. No exaggeration. Silk wasn't some forgettable soldier. He was Black Disciples' aristocracy out of Ada Park, the kind of old-school enforcer whose presence alone silenced rooms. Yet the cruel irony? Von barely knew him. Prison walls swallowed Silk through most of his son's childhood. They truly met only once Von turned 8. Still, that absence carved deeper than presence. The same ruthless avenues that crowned Silk also stole him from home. And when that sniper's scope found him, it pushed Von toward a destiny that would echo 15 years later to understand how. King Von transformed into Chicago's most terrifying storyteller. You have to rewind to where the myth began. Silk of Ada Park. October 28, 1974. Walter E. Bennett entered a Chicago drowning in violence. Even his birth carried paranoia. His parents lived so entangled in street conflict, they feared hospital exposure. Enemies could strike anywhere. So a midwife delivered him on literal silk sheets inside hiding. That legend became his name. Raised in Ada Park, Southside Chicago, Silk inhaled Black Disciples culture from infancy. This wasn't ordinary turf. It was sacred ground shaped since the 1960s under David Barksdale. Generations of hardened veterans schooled young recruits there, passing codes older than the modern drug trade. Silk's father moved quiet, a calculating gangster who spoke sparingly. His mother, Shorty, burned opposite, explosive, fearless, commanding neighborhood respect. Cross her and consequences came fast. Growing under her authority taught Silk that respect wasn't requested, it was seized. Money surrounded him early. Both parents hustled heavy, shielding him from the poverty-suffocating surrounding blocks. Silk witnessed power, status, and fearlessness as everyday currency. That environment etched his blueprint. Move sharp, move dominant, never appear weak. After his parents split, stepfather Big Reggie entered another Chicago underworld titan worth millions. But Reggie carried discipline alongside wealth. He drilled into Silk the crucial divide between flashing money and preserving empires, between terror and authentic respect. Those lessons hardened the strategist inside him. And here's the twist history almost forgot. Silk nearly escaped the streets entirely. On Ada Park's cracked courts, he moved like prophecy flawless handles. Vision, deep shooting range. Old heads swore he had NBA potential. Imagine that alternate life. Contracts instead of indictments. Suburbs instead of sirens. Von raised privileged, never touching O-Block, never becoming Chicago's nightmare narrator. Drill music itself might have evolved differently, but destiny forked elsewhere. Instead of chasing championships, Silk chose the battlefield. He pledged to the Black Disciples, diving headfirst into the same ruthless economy that had shaped his bloodline, and Chicago would never be the same. By the late 80s and early 90s, Silk was already moving in ways that pulled attention from the highest ranks of the Black Disciples. Chicago's gangs back then weren't loose cliques. They operated like disciplined organizations. You couldn't just claim a banner. You had to bleed for it. Prove loyalty. Carry weight. Silk began at the lowest rung like everyone else, but something about him separated him fast. While other young hitters chased reckless beef and loud reputations, Silk calculated every move. He understood survival wasn't victory. Permanence was. His first real proving ground came when leadership trusted him with sensitive BD business. Details faded into rumor, but one thing stayed consistent. Silk executed with chilling precision. Not just strength, strategic strength. A mind always planning 3 outcomes ahead. That performance elevated him instantly. But elevation in Chicago carried a cost. Visibility meant danger. Rivals noticed. Police noticed. His first serious charge landed early 90s, heavy enough to bury him 9 years inside Menard Correctional Facility, one of Illinois' most brutal prisons. Menard wasn't confinement. It was continuation of street warfare behind steel. Survival demanded constant vigilance. Many folded there, snitched, switched alliances, begged relief. Not Silk. He spoke nothing, named nobody, showed zero fracture. He served his entire sentence in silence, earning respect across gang lines. That reputation hardened into legend. While he was caged, Chicago shifted violently. Alliances fractured, codes eroded, chaos replaced structure. But Silk turned prison into preparation. He studied power, hierarchy, street economics, planned his return when release finally came. The Black Disciples rewarded him with rare authority control of a tower inside the Robert Taylor homes on State Street. That assignment wasn't territory. It was a revenue engine. Robert Taylor stood as epicenter of Chicago's narcotics economy. Managing a tower meant orchestrating supply, enforcement, debt, conflict, loyalty. Only leaders capable of commanding obedience without constant gunfire survived that role, Street Talk claimed. Silk became a millionaire before 25. Yet, he stayed quiet with wealth. Tight circle, constant readiness, minimal trust. He understood Chicago's truth. Today's ally could become tomorrow's assassin. Rolling beside Silk meant accepting gunfire as routine. Few endured his tempo. His loyalty demanded matching resolve. Still, success showed. Silk returned to Ada Park in pristine luxury Cadillacs, BMWs, Mercedes. Each arrival electrified the block. Kids swarmed. Veterans nodded. Women watched. He moved like neighborhood royalty, yet remained rooted among childhood allies. That fidelity separated authentic power from imitation. Romantically, Silk carried reputation too. Rumor claimed keys to multiple women's homes hung from his ring. Partners, independent, respected, financially secure. That lifestyle produced 7 children across relationships, including Devin with Tasha Chambers. But that bond fractured early. Separation came while Vaughn remained young. And Silk's recurring incarcerations carved absence through his son's childhood. He would vanish for weeks, sometimes months. At times, prison swallowed him. Other times, he hid from enemies hunting him. And sometimes he moved through distant cities chasing deals that kept his empire breathing. The first real meeting between Vaughn and his father came around 2002, when Vaughn was 8. Imagine that reality, growing up hearing legends about your own father, yet never seeing his face. Your mother tells stories. Old heads speak his name with reverence. But to you, he feels unreal, almost mythical. When they finally stood facetto face, the legend materialized. Silk exceeded every image in Vaughn's mind. Tall, composed, radiating authority wherever he stepped. Their time together was brief, but Silk compressed a lifetime of street doctrine into those moments. He drilled loyalty above survival, never betray those who stand beside you. He explained respect as currency greater than money, earned through consistency and defended without hesitation. He taught posture, perception, instinct, how to read danger before danger reads you. Yet beneath the code, Silk carried warnings. He spoke of fallen friends, lost chances, sleepless vigilance. He wanted Vaughn to see the cost behind the crown, to choose a different road. Vaughn absorbed everything, every word, gesture, glance. But just as quickly, Silk disappeared again. Prison, streets, conflict, the orbit that always reclaimed him. By 2005, Silk still moved heavily across Chicago, but the ecosystem had shifted. The organized discipline of earlier decades dissolved into unpredictable violence. Younger crews ignored old rules, escalating bloodshed without restraint. Silk had survived years of wars, incarcerations, ambush attempts, building influence far beyond Ada Park. Respect expanded, so did enemies. The skating rink on 87th Street. Where fate waited, wasn't innocent recreation. It functioned as neutral ground, a space where rival factions conducted business without territorial friction. On July 31, 2005, Silk reportedly arrived for a deal. Something went wrong. Street accounts claim betrayal. Someone trusted guided him into a calculated trap. Not random conflict planned execution. A sniper positioned at distance delivered the fatal shot, ending Walter Silk Bennett's reign. His reputation made close attack impossible. Only remote precision could reach him. The bullet struck his head. Rushed to hospital, he lingered 2 days as doctors fought impossible odds. The Bennett family clung to hope. Tasha brought Vaughn to the ICU, where he saw his father reduced to machines, monitors echoing sterile rhythms. That image replaced legend forever. During surgery on July 31st, Walter Silk Bennett died. The survivor of Chicago's harshest wars was gone, leaving his 11-year-old son to carry both loss and violence imprinted permanently. Tasha fought relentlessly to keep Vaughn anchored in school, discipline, and possibility. She pushed visions of a life untouched by street gravity. But she battled forces far larger than one mother's will. Parkway Gardens, where she raised him, was hardening into the epicenter of Chicago's coming gang wars. Without Silk's presence, even the fragments he once provided. Vaughn searched elsewhere for identity. The black disciples inside a block embraced him instantly. To them, he wasn't just another kid. He was Silk's blood, heir to a feared lineage. They fed him stories, empire, respect, dominance, survival. Those legends became Vaughn's operating manual. But myth distorts reality. It promised glory without revealing cost. The veterans who had known Silk meant guidance. Yet they too were forged by the same machinery that destroyed him. Their lessons, loyalty, defiance, readiness for violence, were exactly what elevated Silk and exactly what killed him. By 13, Vaughn mirrored those traits. School fights, older crews, fearless defiance. Intervention came too late. His identity had fused with legacy. Arrests began at 14. Minor charges first, escalating fast. Each silence under interrogation amplified reputation. He became known not just as Vaughn, but as Silk's son reborn. Same nerve, same refusal to bend. Here lies the tragedy. The code that crowned Silk also sealed his fate. Loyalty, aggression, honor through violence, celebrated virtues that doubled as death warrants in Chicago's escalating wars. Vaughn inherited them alongside the trauma of witnessing his father's murder. By 16, he faced severe charges: robbery, attempted murder, cases capable of erasing decades. The cycle-consuming Silk now devoured his son. Streets that claimed one Bennett summoned another with identical promises. Power, wealth, reverence. Vaughn answered completely. He joined the same black disciples, adopted identical creed, even earned the name grandson, linking him directly to founder David Barksdale. Silk's death didn't only shape King Vaughn. It forged a figure who would haunt Chicago for 15 years. Every lyric, confrontation, and risk traced back to the child standing beside a lowered coffin. Vaughn lived inside contradiction, honoring and extending the very cycle that destroyed his bloodline. His music success opened doors Silk never touched. He possessed real chances: exit the streets, build legitimate wealth, secure generational stability. And in part, he tried. Vaughn purchased property, launched ventures, mapped futures beyond a block. Yet detachment proved impossible. The same loyalty that made him split earnings with his crew also chained him to origins he refused to abandon. He felt bound to represent O-Block, to uphold Silk's legacy, to prove the Bennett name still carried weight in Chicago. That conflict, escape versus allegiance, defined everything. He chased legitimacy while guarding credibility, sought safety while honoring fallen friends, tried avoiding Silk's fate while living its echo. Tragically, he was winning. His voice reached millions who recognized trauma and survival in his lyrics. His brand expanded far beyond Chicago, creating avenues unimaginable for earlier street generations. But visibility carried danger. Fame enlarged his target. Wealth invited predators. Influence intensified enemies. The success meant to free him instead marked him. November 6, 2020. Outside an Atlanta hookah lounge, King Von's story closed exactly where Silk's began. Gunfire. Hospital lights. Final breath. The 15-year cycle completed. Another Bennett lived and died by the weapon, leaving children to inherit absence. Aftermath mirrored history. Streets mourned another fallen icon, potential erased by violence. Yet inevitability lingered recognition. He lived on borrowed time. His funeral, like Silk's, drew hundreds shaped by his presence. But it also exposed stagnation, identical wars, codes, losses still devouring Chicago youth. Now the legacy transfers again. Von's children inherit myth and pressure stories of a father larger than life, yet fatally human. Silk's influence survives through music and memory, shaping culture far beyond Ada Park. But legacy also warns. To Bennett generations, brilliant, feared, buried early. Their virtues, fearlessness, loyalty, defiance also marked them. Streets crowned them, then claimed them. Ultimately, Walter, Silk, Bennett, and King Von embodied generational trauma. Absence shaping identity. Violence breeding legend, then consuming it. Respect measured in blood leaves families grieving. Silk never saw Von's rise. Yet his shadow lived in every lyric. Decision, risk. Born on silk sheets, killed by a sniper, he forged a legacy lasting 15 years, but not long enough to save his son.